Hi, Chayton Cresswell, Sustainability Chair of Greater Area Fort Worth Sierra Club, back at you again this Friday. Our last discussion was looking at sustainability in general, and today we're going to be shifting that into the realm of policy. So today I have my friends Sunny, Dale, and Karla. Sunny and Dale are both from the Sunrise Movement Dallas. Karla is from our Revolution, Texas, and specifically the Fort Worth chapter. Um, I kind of wanted to have you all here today so that we could kind of talk about the importance of what goes into making a green economy through policy choice, as well as kind of ways that policy will have greater impacts on society at large. Um, on that note, is there kind of, when you're thinking about policy, I guess a good place to start would be what do you really think about when you hear that word, or when you're thinking about green policy in general?
I think for me, especially right now, one of the things I think about is green stimulus measures. So, are there ways that coming out of the economic crisis that we're in, we can stimulate the economy and make our future more sustainable? So, retrofitting buildings, investing in solar energy and wind energy, investing in research for other forms of renewable energy or energy storage. And, can we create jobs doing that? Can we invest in our public transit? Other things like that, which are going to clean our air, reduce climate change, and make lives better for people every day in their communities.
Yeah, exactly. Dale or Karla, did either of you have some things that you kind of wanted to add to that?
Yeah, I think I would make sure that we expand the green idea to include just this sort of the traditional um, pollution fighting. Like nowadays, CO2 is the main culprit that we're fighting because we've already gotten control of all of the like mostly under control, the particulates and things like mercury and toxic chemicals and things like that. But we need to not forget that as it seems like it's happening now. We need to get back to where we're concerned about our wetlands, and we're concerned about the quality of the air, and in terms of toxin and particulates. And also the water, we need to make sure that we have clean water. So green, I think, encompasses both the climate change idea and the and all of the traditional pollution fighting measures.
Yeah, it's a very good point. Karla, was there anything you wanted to add?
Yeah, so I just wanted to add, with policy in general, that term, um, just accountability, not just on ourselves as individuals, but accountability on like the corporations and the industries that are contributing, and just like our other worldly partners too, how we can be influencing, the changes that they should be making as well. I think that, it's something very generational too. What has shifted from like the focuses for environmental, conservation or preservation, um, but just the accountability and how we can all just be working together and making sure that um, we're not fighting against each other and we're working together genuinely. So.
Yeah, and all of you made great points, and that's kind of really the big crux of policy, is that its point and purpose is to shape how everyone can have a shared understanding of what will go into progressing as a collective society. And that's what's kind of a big important part of when you're looking at political candidates, when you're looking at how you may want to consider specific things going on in the world. You have to kind of go back to, will this person that I'm wanting to vote for? Will this idea that I'm trying to work through have a larger impact when I look at other people? And that idea of accountability that Karla spoke on it's really at the heart of what a policy is. It's ensuring that what goes into any choice or action on a large scale isn't just impacting you. And that's kind of what it comes back to with generating policies that are green or sustainable, is that their focus is on allowing for all of us to work together to make important beneficial changes, or to make large sweeping um, kind of, not necessarily differences. And I feel like changes is kind of a poor choice of words, because really what's happening is things are evolving as they should be when you're looking at what policy is doing. Because a lot of the times it's really reactionary. Like Sunny was saying, with the idea of having things focus on changing how within the economy jobs are maintained. That's supposed to just be kind of the idea that a policy is created to shift resources towards how things are actually working best for the economy when you and hopefully the workers when you're kind of considering government, because the individuals that are taking part and are actually the ones making things happen are very much important to ensuring that everything that's going on is effective. So that was kind of a very long-winded and roundabout kind of look at policy on my end. And kind of thinking about that now, we've all kind of shared our ideas. Is there this kind of general way that you think current policy is going, that when you start thinking about how it could improve with more of a sustainable or a green focus, are there kind of some really key things that you think about when you're starting to consider those things?
I think I think we need to be looking at what one of the key things for me is just our carbon emissions. I mean, we have 10 years to basically cut our carbon emissions in half globally before climate change reaches tipping points at which that we may or may not be able to return from. And so I think we have to look at what policies and which ones can most effectively reduce our emissions in a very short period of time. It's not Climate change isn't something that's happening later. It's not happening to some other group of people. It's not a problem for future generation to worry about. I mean, we have to do it. We have to do it now. That's why you see a lot of youth activism around climate change. I think young people really understand their futures at stake. But I would say that anybody who's probably under like 65 or 70, their future's at stake too. So I think that's important. And I think it's also important that we make sure that as we're changing our policies, that we're very thoughtful about who those policies are affecting and what that will mean for people's quality of life. So we just want to make sure all people benefit from stimulus measures or benefit from reduced pollution, not that those things are concentrated in already wealthier or already better off communities.
Yeah, exactly. And that's a great point on that too, to kind of expand, is that we often tend to think of policy from a national standpoint, and there's really a great need for us as voters or as people trying to lead thought on policy, that we're considering the local city scale just as much as we're considering the state and national scales, because there's always going to be this weird interplay between what happens in Congress nationally, what happens in Congress at the state level, and what happens in city council. And each one impacts our lives in slightly different ways, that if we're not fully concerned with, what the Texas State Senate decides to come up with a bill for, and what then has a direct impact on how cities are supposed to shape their policies, then a lot of potentially good policy could not really be impacting our lives when it comes from the National Congress, because there might be some counterindicative policy that's put forth somewhere else down the line. So it's important that when we're out voting, when we're taking this sustainable or green mindset, that we're considering all levels of government when it comes to policy and how candidates across the board will be impacting our day-to-day lives. And a really good resource, if anyone's interested, is ballotpedia.com. It is a great place to go check out candidates, where you can learn about their policy stances. You can see when you have an upcoming election, and you can see what's going to be on that ballot. And that can give you some time to kind of go in and consider what levels of policy you're wanting to put onto that election, what levels of things that need to be done from the city, which city elections are coming up pretty soon for, I know, Fort Worth at least. There's going to be a few things that will need to be considered on that, involving the environment. Specifically, there's a public transit versus police department getting funding from a 1 cent sales tax component. And so that's going to have to be something that needs to be considered as we're kind of moving forward. Is there are a lot of weird ways that policy is interwoven, because that bill is essentially, or that vote that we have to make within the city of Fort Worth for our upcoming election will be dictating whether or not we have an adequately funded transportation system, or whether or not our police department is funded through that sales tax. So it's kind of why now, as climate action is becoming more of a forefront topic for a lot of people, that policy has to really be a large part of where we're investing our time, not just in mindset shifts like I talked about on Wednesday when it comes to sustainability, but also things that are directly impacting how government functions when it comes to the environment, when it comes to equal pay, or when it comes to equal access to work for all. So on kind of that note, is there anything anyone else would like to add, or is there anything that someone can think of that I forgot to kind of talk about when it comes to policy or the importance of green policy?
You may have already talked about this, but I feel like sort of integrating the whole idea of sustainability into regular policy discussion is really key to this, because right now it seems like it's always sort of a nice to have thing. Oh, we'll do something nice for the environmentalists if we have, if we can afford it, or things like that. But we need to really understand that we can't afford to not have sustainability. At least, I mean, if we can't sustain all the way into the future, into our children and grandchildren, then we're not really affording much of anything. And that's the whole idea of sustainability, is that we're going to try to not use up the earth in our lifetime. We're going to try to leave some for everybody else that follows.
Exactly. And that's why it's so important that, in combination with that mindset shift, we really do find ways to work within policy to make a change. And that's, I think, one of the main takeaways that I want everyone at home to kind of come up with, is that we need to shift how we're thinking, but we also need to make sure that as we're making that shift in our minds, that it's happening outside of our minds. And that's not just through our own personal actions, but that's happening through our collective actions when it comes to policy. It's also going to mean that we're all going to have to be willing to start talking about politics. I mean, that's one of the things that our society has typically said is a dirty topic. We shouldn't consider it because people get really easily upset about it. But the beautiful thing about being a human being is that our brains change and adapt based off of how we interact with things. And so as we become more willing to discuss policy, we'll start getting to points where we get extremely angry, but the more that we do it, the easier it is for us to respond just by having a regular discussion, because now it's not a taboo idea. Now it's a lot easier to focus on the facts instead of those gut reactions. And I guarantee it's not going to be easy. It is going to take a long time, but it's something that is really important that we invest in now, because as people able to drastically change the course of human history at this extremely crucial time, we have the necessity to try our hardest to ensure that we are establishing something that can be maintained over a long course of time. Because policy in and of itself is kind of a band-aid. It's able to easily be changed, and it's not something that is a cure-all. And that's why discussing mindset shifts is always going to be an important part of policy discussion, because society can change and it becomes harder to change over time as ideas solidify. But with policy, it's a lot easier for that to just fall apart, as we're kind of seeing now with the current administration. Years and years of environmental activism and environmental policy shifts have been thrown away simply by the choice of the government. And the end result is that companies are now able to go back to whatever moral compass they initially relied on to do their business. So now it's going to take work to put people in positions of power that will be willing to maintain policies, but it's also going to take work to ensure that the people running our corporations, the people that are working in high-level positions, are thinking differently than they do now. And that's not something that can happen solely through policy. That's a large part, something that will have to happen through a discussion and through willful work on our own personal parts and on communal parts. So very grateful for all of you coming to join today. Like to say that if you are interested in the Sunrise Movement, you can visit sunrisemovement.org. For the Dallas area chapter of the movement, you can check out Sunrise Dallas on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram. Were there specifics that I forgot for those?
We also have a website, sunrisedallas.org. And then if you look up Sunrise Movement Dallas, I think you'll find us on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter.
And I think Instagram is, or no, I think Twitter is Dallas_sunrise. So, one more.
So just to recap, sunrisedallas.org,
Mm.
Sunrise Movement Dallas on Facebook and Instagram, and then Dallas_sunrise on Twitter.
Yeah.
Awesome. Thank you very much. And Our Revolution Texas can be found at ourrevolution.org, I believe. And actually, Karla, would you?
Yeah, so our state page is ourrevolution.tx.org. You can find the local chapters from that website. So specifically Tarrant County and our Dallas, North Texas chapters. And
Awesome.
We are also on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram.
And I would also like to point out that Our Revolution Texas is currently working on a Green New Texas. The concept is that they're generating green-focused policies in order to shift the way the state of Texas runs its economy and ensures equal rights to as many members of society as possible. You can get more information on that by checking out ourgreennewdeal.org, and you'll find a great amount of resources there. Is there anything else you guys feel like saying before we hop off here now?
We also have a petition that is set up just to garner more support. We are planning on introducing a Green New Texas Act into the legislature for 2021. And so we're just trying to collect as many signatures as we can. So definitely share that link so we can try to get all the signatures before then.
Awesome. Thank you all very much, and I hope you have a great rest of your day.